Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror in film, television, literature, and popular culture. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Bruce Markison. As always, I'm joined by producer and co-host Tracy Asteria. Tracy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bruce. How are you doing?
Good. Saw an interesting movie the other night. Thought I would talk about that very briefly before we move on to the main attraction, our two guests coming up. It was a mid-1980s film called Cut and Run with Michael Berryman, one of your favorites. The late Lisa Blunt, fine actress who sadly died pretty young, also in it. I wrote about it on the Facebook page, the Ghostly Gallery Facebook page. It's not a great movie, but it's really bizarre. It's horror, it's mystery, it's thriller, it's crime, it's drugs. It's like almost every genre except for comedy. It's really kind of a strange, bizarre film. It was done by this Italian director who did Cannibal Holocaust, which is one of the more controversial films ever. And this film, Cut and Run, it has some pretty extreme violence. There's a scene where a guy is literally split in half. Michael Berryman is this crazed assassin who jumps out of the water and starts killing people seemingly at random. I mean, it's an incredible film. It's on Tubi. I don't think you've seen it. I just happened on it by chance the other day. And it was really kind of an interesting, bizarre, but still somewhat watchable film.
I think I will have to watch that one now. Michael Berryman, absolutely. I watched the brand new movie Apartment 7A last night. That was interesting, and we should chat about that another time. It's
Apartment
the
7A.
prequel.
All right.
Yeah, the prequel to Rosemary's Baby. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Caught that. Exactly.
Yeah. Michael Berryman, by the way, actually talked about the film Cut and Run at the horror convention I went to at Vernon Downs in August. And he talked about how the director was an absolute maniac. And apparently, if we can believe what's on the IMDb page, he was so mad at this director, and his exact name is escaping me, but he's a pretty famous Italian director. He was so mad at him that he actually picked him up off a dock and threw him into this water. Apparently, Berryman was forced to wade in this water, which had electric eels in it, very dangerous. He was lied to by the director about the safety of the water. And so when he found out that it was as dangerous as it actually was, he exacted revenge. He picked up the director, tossed him into the water, and said, "Now you give it a try for a while." So pretty wild.
That is very wild. So that's just a really good insight into what the film would actually be about. So on my giant list.
Yeah, I think the director was a bit off his rocker, to tell you the truth.
Wow.
All right. On to our main attraction. I've made them wait long enough. Today, we're very happy to have a team of guests, a pair of horror hosts. Janet J is Janet Decay, a.k.a. The Mummy, and James Harmon is Grimm Gorri, a.k.a. The Monkey. This horror host duo hails from Cleveland, Ohio, and they run a hugely popular YouTube channel called The Mummy and the Monkey. Let me tell you a little bit more about them before we bring them on officially. In 2023, The Mummy and the Monkey actually received an honorable mention from the 22nd annual Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards for Favorite Horror Host of the Year. So they got an honorable mention, but even more impressive than that, same year, 2023, Janet and Grimm Gorri were inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame, and we're very glad to have both of them with us today, both Hall of Famers. Janet and James, welcome to the Ghostly Gallery. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, Bruce. Hey. Hello, Tracy. It's great to be here.
We're happy to have you.
That's right. Yeah.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to talk to you. You both incredible success stories, and we're going to get into some of that, talk about some of your love of horror as well, and a few other interesting topics. To start things off, a question for each of you. When did you each become a horror fan? Was there a pivotal moment in your childhood that you can recall? Let's start with Janet on this one.
I'm trying to pinpoint. I don't know if there was like an exact. I guess it has to start with my love of Halloween. My birthday is 2 days before Halloween. So as a little kid, I would really get into Halloween. You know, I loved getting a costume put together, loved going out trick-or-treating, loved all the Halloween specials on TV. Didn't get to watch the scary movies until I was a little bit older. But, you know, I think that was probably the start of it. You know, just really enjoying the whole Halloween holiday and everything wrapped around it. So
very good. James, how about you?
Well, I have to credit my mom for this. I can recall very early as a little kid being put in front of the TV set. She also enjoyed these programs too of local Cleveland horror hosts at the time, where Houlihan and Big Chuck showed a lot of late night movies on Friday nights. And then The Ghoul was another guy who started up in 1971. I was born in 69, so like my earliest memories are probably from the early 70s of watching these B-movie horror movies on these programs, and liking the comedy skits and stuff of the format of the horror hosted type of show, but also the horror movies. Again, these were the B movies like Plan 9 from Outer Space and The Giant Claw and things like that. And as I got older, of course, that was something that was just always there, and it evolved into seeing the more horror movies that are credited as like horror movies like The Exorcist and Friday the 13th and stuff like that, even earlier things. But yeah, it had to be from watching television as a kid, planted in front of it and absorbing all of that stuff, especially horror movies.
I caught the tail end of that because I was a kid of the 80s and 90s, so there were some horror hosts on TV then, but over time it started to fade away. Like you didn't see that on as much.
Yeah. So my fascination with horror movies and horror hosts were kind of hand in hand. That's where it all started with, because we, at that time, and we even had another horror host or movie host, whatever you want to call him, named Superhost on a UHF station, channel 43 here. So at that time we had like at least 3 different horror/movie hosts in Cleveland. So it was pretty prolific here,
Oh, wow. So you guys, like the horror history in Cleveland is like a pretty big thing, like with all the different horror hosts. And did you have one that was particularly influential to you guys?
You go first.
Probably.
Would they have to be local? I mean, could it be?
Oh gosh, no.
Okay, then.
Well, there's a lot of cities throughout the states that had like a local TV horror host character that would, it could have been like the local weatherman or newscaster that would, later on the weekends dress up like a vampire or something and
to do
play a scary movie. But
what was your
here in Cleveland? Like if I picked a local one, probably Big Chuck and Little John.
Yeah.
And the Ghoul.
Yeah,
those two for sure.
Yeah, I would have to say for sure it was the Houlihan and Big Chuck for me. Again, they didn't wear costumes. They were just guys that had really fun personalities. Again, great like voices. So they had distinctive voices, and their shtick was doing comedy bits, like skits and things like that, with a lot of local flavor, Cleveland flavor, and some were probably just jokes that they just turned into skits, But there was a nice balance there. So, and that always intrigued me as a kid. And even though I didn't think I would grow up to do it, I was always fascinated by it, to the point when I was, I've always drawn, artwork and stuff as a kid, drawing pictures and drawing stuff all the time. And I would send in artwork to these shows that I liked, and they would show them on TV. And, even say my name, once in a while when I would send stuff. And thankfully I videotaped some of the stuff in my late teens. So I do have some of it on on videotape to look back on.
Well, and you have one of the props, something you sent into the Ghoul years ago.
Yeah, that's a whole another type of story. But yeah, I actually built props for a couple of the Big Chuck and Little John. So Houlihan and Big Chuck was a really big influence, and a really they took over for Ghoulardi, who was a really big horror host here in Cleveland, like right before I was born,
from
1963
1963 to
1966.
1966, and Ernie Anderson was the actor.
He portrayed Ghoulardi, who went on to move to California in '67 and eventually become the voice of ABC. Tonight on the Love Boat, and then he was that voice in the '70s, '80s, up into the '90s, and he's also the father of Paul Thomas Anderson, the famous director.
He made like Boogie Nights.
Yes, who did Boogie Nights, Licorice Pizza recently. What's the one with Tom Cruise and the
I'd have to
the
look
flower
it up.
name? I can't think of it.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Shoot. But anyway, Magnolia did that one too.
Okay. Oh wow.
But anyway, so but there's a really interesting and when we go to for inspiration, it was a documentary made a bunch of years ago called American Scary.
Ooh.
And it's basically the history of horror hosts in the United States, at least.
Right.
And they interview a lot of people,
like Mila Nurmi, who was Vampira. She was the first horror movie host in the States. She started in 1955 in California.
Mhm.
And then Zachary was on the East Coast kind of around the same time. So probably those two were like the first ones
but when they
were doing it.
But when they interview like Big Chuck and Little John from Cleveland, Big Chuck, Chuck Shadowski, he said he doesn't know what it is about Ohio, but there might be something in the water that produces so many horror hosts. And we do have a pretty huge amount of horror hosts that are from Ohio.
Yeah, there are a lot of them, or were a lot of them.
And still are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chunk of them around now, but
internet ones and stuff. But
oh wow, that's
legit.
Incredible. So is there like a lot of I don't know, like scary places in Ohio? Because I know there's like been a few documentaries on some pretty creepy places. And
what's the Reformatory?
Oh yeah, the Mansfield Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio. They made they filmed the movie Shawshank Redemption there.
Right.
And they do ghost tours.
Still to this day they do ghost tours.
There's people who say that they have experienced some ghostly things. And it's so much history at that penitentiary. And it's been closed down for years, but it's such a tourist attraction now. And there's a Haunted Ohio book series and all kinds of different books like that explain.
And don't forget about the Franklin Castle in our
Franklin
backyard
Castle,
here.
yes, in Cleveland, Ohio, yeah.
Yes, and that's a very, very sort of notoriously notorious haunted house here in Cleveland.
It's a mansion that looks like a castle that was owned by multiple owners, and it has like a really weird kind of history of
babies buried in the wall type of thing.
They found dead babies in the wall.
Yes, that's true.
Wow.
There's a truth to that, and one of the coolest things. And this was a house, a privately owned home for a long time, but for some reason they started doing tours there very shortly. They briefly did this, and Janet, for my birthday a couple years ago, booked one of these tours, and it was pretty cool.
And it's been
to see the
restored and renovated, and it just
it caught fire. Someone set fire to it because they thought it was an evil place, this kind of thing. But it was amazing on the inside. I don't think they do the tours anymore.
I'm not sure.
It was a short time
I think you
them.
can stay the night there now. They have it set up where you can stay in some of the rooms,
like an Airbnb.
Yeah, there you go.
Airbnb. I don't know. There you go.
Oh wow. So you guys obviously have an interest in the paranormal as well?
Sure, why not?
We do. Yeah, it kind of, the scary movies, the sci-fi, paranormal stuff. Yeah, we're kind of into a little bit of all that, comic books and some pop culture.
A lot of everything. A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
Soup, things like that.
Oh my gosh. Oh well.
Bruce. I digress.
Bruce is actually, he hosts ghost tours and stuff like that as well in
very cool.
the Cooperstown area. So yeah.
I really enjoy telling the stories, and it's kind of a great way to learn the local history here. You talk about the Cooper family. The town was founded by William Cooper, father of the great writer James Fenimore Cooper. And I think it makes history more interesting when you can sort of tie in ghosts. I tried to do some paranormal research when the ghost hunters came here, and they did a seminar. This was many years ago. And I found I just didn't have the patience to do it. Tracy has the patience. Tracy is a ghost hunter, if you will. But for me,
Oh,
it was just hard
Nice.
waiting for things to happen. I want things to happen within a few seconds. And that's just not the way it is for ghost hunters.
yeah. My
No.
my big thing with that was Art Bell, his show
Mm,
Coast to Coast AM for the in the mid '90s when he started up doing all the paranormal stuff and things like that. And the EVPs were really interesting when they had the people
right.
on from that did all the EVP recordings. I thought that I was glued to the radio for those.
Yeah.
Love those. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I even try to do that myself too. I put a tape recorder in my basement, left it there. I didn't hear anything but the boiler turn on
The
and off.
furnace or
Yeah,
something.
the furnace. And
The
of course,
washing
your
machine.
imagination takes over. But
Yeah.
but it's fun. I mean, it's the old campfire thing. Sitting around the
Sure.
campfire and
Mhm.
telling ghost stories is always that's what horror movies are pretty much come from anyway.
Yeah.
Things that go
Exactly.
bump in the night.
You talked earlier about how you both became fans of horror, and it really started when you were younger. But
Mhm.
how about what made you want to become horror hosts? I assume that's something that came around later when you both became adults. What kind of triggered that interest and said, "Yeah, I think I'd like to maybe do what Ghoulardi and the Ghoul and some of these other folks have done, now doing it on YouTube." How did that start?
Well, it's interesting because our paths didn't cross until what, like 13 years ago, right? I mean, is it
Around
been,
2012
yeah.
ish.
So,
Yeah, is
but
when we started out as friends. So I worked a regular job as a retail manager, and then I was also on the side pursuing acting and modeling jobs. And there was a filmmaker friend who notified me that there was an audition for a cable access show called The Daughter of the Ghoul. And I'm like, The Daughter of the Ghoul, that sounds cool.
yeah, which
I
had
gotta try
nothing to
for
do
that.
had nothing to do with the Ghoul show that was huge here in Cleveland for a long time. And the Ghoul was basically a character that was portrayed by a fellow named Ron Swede, who was a protege to Ghoulardi, Ernie Anderson. He was actually
Right.
he hung around. He basically showed up to one of Ghoulardi's appearances
Mhm.
dressed up like a gorilla in a gorilla suit, and Ghoulardi loved it. He thought this was the funniest thing. And Ron Swede was obsessed with Ghoulardi, as many Clevelanders were back then, and that got him into the to the behind the scenes of the Ghoulardi show. So Ron would be like a gopher. He would go be a runner for the show and do things, but he contributed as well to the Ghoulardi show. And then when Ernie left, Ron didn't want that to end, so he goes, "Can I portray the Ghoulardi character and do my own show?" And Ernie told him, "Well, I own the character and but the station owns the name. You can call yourself the Ghoul and dress like that if you want." So that's what Ron did. And Ron Swede started his Ghoul show, called himself the Ghoul in 1971, I believe, when he debuted. But he was, but so back to what we were saying about becoming horror host. So
Yes.
The Daughter of the Ghoul has nothing
to do with the original Ghoul show that was on TV in Ohio and Michigan.
Although to this day, people still ask you if you're Ron Swede's daughter.
Yeah, it was
because you did that show.
The producer of the show named it that, and we didn't really like the name, but for a year we helped host it, and he would call it The Daughter of the Ghoul, starring Janet Decay.
Yeah, long story short.
And it was just like a fun kind of a little side project to help with.
Yeah, long story short, yeah. So Janet was headed towards this show. I was helping out behind the scenes because I'd moved back to Cleveland in 2012 and found out about this show that I never heard of before. And I'm like, wait a minute, I lived away from Cleveland for like 10 years, bopped around worked different jobs and stuff, different companies, and came back to Cleveland because I miss it so much. And every time I come visit, I'd have the best time. And I want to take care of my mom. So I moved back, and right away, I see this thing about the Daughter of the Ghoul show posted somewhere. I'm like, let me figure this out, because I've never ever heard of this. And it turns out this fella was putting together this show called the Daughter of the Ghoul show, where he would have different, there wasn't the host was not called the Daughter of the Ghoul. That was just the name of the show, like the Tonight Show featuring Jay Leno, featuring Johnny Carson.
So
it was just an umbrella name.
Yeah. So we helped with that for a year. You had your Grimm Gorri, your monkey character that would show up. You would help with skits and artwork.
Yeah. And again, we didn't meet. We had these characters before we met each other.
Yes.
I started the Grimm Gorri character in like the early 90s.
Oh yeah, because before that, I made up this mummy character for charity zombie walk events in different parts of Northeast Ohio. It would be like, okay, dress up like a zombie, bring some cans of food to help the local food pantry, and let's go hang out and have beer and do a zombie crawl, you know.
And you didn't want to be a zombie.
And I
but
thought,
you wanted
well,
to come
everyone's
up with,
dressed up like a zombie. What could I do that's still undead? And I thought, well, maybe I can make a mummy costume. And then it evolved into like a character.
Right. And then when you got the call for that audition or to be on that show, you just said, oh, I'll just use this mummy
I just
character.
thought, well, I'll just use my mummy character.
And I love the name. Janet Decay is a cool name that you made up. But Grimm Gorri, this character I had, is, and again, there's a little bit of an age difference too between Janet and I. I'm 14 years older than her. So, you know, it's like, you know, it's
Gen X and elder millennial.
Yeah. But so my I date these stories, it's just there's a difference there. But in the early 90s, with, you know, using a regular video camera, everyone's using like VHS, you know, tape cameras. I decided to do my own sort of just for fun horror host show, you know, just for myself.
Well,
I mean, a friend
used to
and I
send
did
it into public access cable,
This
right?
is before that.
Oh,
a friend of mine who was also obsessed with it. And I still have this footage. I should do something with it.
Yeah, I've never seen this.
But a friend of mine, yeah, I know that's true. You haven't seen it.
I have never seen it.
But it's so bad. But we built a set, and I think some of this is part. This set is originally from those years. This set's pretty old. It's just basically three pieces of cardboard with a bunch of junk glue to it.
Yeah,
like old comic book covers and monster pictures and stuff. But we've added to it over the years. But anyway, so we created our own, you know, one episode or whatever show just to fool around, pick the Godzilla movie, and we were never going to do anything with it. It was just for our own fun. But I still played around with that character for a while. And then in 2001, when I was living in Providence, Rhode Island, their cable access was like, hey, just send us stuff in and we'll show it. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I did at least 2 episodes of the Grimm Gorri show. And they're awful, but you know, it was a different mask I had at the time. And but I don't know why. Who knows? It's just very odd why you do things. But
well, you were just being a big fanboy and you felt compelled to try it.
It's a creative outlet. I mean, I'm an artist, a graphic designer by trade. I do all the artwork for our show. I design our logos and anything.
I designed the t-shirt.
Yeah, so we have that built in. We have to source that out, so we get that on the cheap. But you know, I also like to play music a little bit, but so this horror host thing was like a creative outlet for all that. I come up with comic book ideas.
And we worked
similar.
We worked on the Daughter of the Ghoul show for a year with this other producer. And we had some creative differences, so we parted ways. Yeah. And he was canceling the show and wanted to do other videos.
That was a long,
like wrestling shows and stuff like that.
Sorry.
So yeah, that was. Let's try to go back on track. And then after that, we're like, well, maybe we could still do some videos together. And we were trying to figure out what to call the show. Wow. And we went to like a Halloween trick or treat event, and we thought, well, let's get some video of the Halloween stuff, and we'll pass out candy. And the kids were yelling, "Mummy, monkey!" And later that day, I'm like,
there's no way I could have came up with that.
We should call it the Mummy and the Monkey because it's so stupid simple.
Yeah, the first iteration of our show was called the Mummy and the Monkey Show, and it was a scripted, you know, horror movie hosted thing. We did like direct to DVD, and we would try to send it to public access stations too.
Yeah, like public access cable stations or different Roku channels. Whoever would pick it up to play it.
Yeah,
right.
So James, you mentioned Ron Swede dressed up as a gorilla when he went to see Ghoulardi, Ernie Anderson. So that's where you got the idea for the monkey?
Not at all. I didn't know that story till way later. Yeah, I mean, no. It was the best way I could describe this. It's in the movie Chaplin. Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
Robert Downey Jr. It's really good. It's
that's a great movie.
It's a biopic of of Charlie Chaplin's life. But they did this one scene. It's a magic. I love the way this person's mind thought. The director or whoever came up with this idea. But it's basically Charlie Chaplin comes to America and they're getting ready to shoot this thing. And this is before he came up with the tramp character, you know, with the I think he had the mustache at the time, but he didn't have the cane and the hat and the floppy shoe. But so he walks in this tent and they're like, get ready, we're going to be shooting the scene in a few minutes. So he's like, he wants to dress up like something, but doesn't know what yet. So he's looking around this tent full of props and he looks at this receptacle that has canes in it. And one of them glows and he picks it up. And he looks around at this like pile of hat, and that one hat, this the derby he wore, it glowed, and he picked it up. I'm like, that moment happened, and this is before I saw that movie, but that moment kind of happened to me with Grimm Gorri, as silly as it sounds. I was in a thrift store, and there was this plastic monkey mask. It was hard plastic, hinge jaw, like blow molded vac form monkey mask, and it was laying on the top of, I'll never forget it, on top of this rack of over some clothing, and I looked at it and just kind of, I was like, that's the character I need to do.
It spoke to you.
Yeah. And it spoke to me. It basically glowed like in that Chaplin movie. And so that's a real thing. You've
always liked King Kong and Planet of the Apes.
But I never correlated it with that. It was just, it had no hair in it. So I took a beard, a phony beard prop, and I glued it to the top. And I still have this mask. And I just came up with this. Originally, it was a very everyone talks like that from Transylvania. I'm Grimm Gorri, and the name is kind of weird too, because I kind of think I just pulled it out of my butt, but it actually has. It actually has
your monkey butt.
There's a movie. Eventually, yeah. But there's an old show called Spectre Man that was a Japanese sort of guy,
like a robot
like Ultraman
or show,
but it was a cheaper version where he fights big rubber monsters. And the main bad guys were these two gorilla ape guys, and the one guy was named Dr. Gorri, like gorilla, but Gorri. Right. And I think subliminally, I just thought Grimm Gorri and didn't even think that it had any. But that's where I didn't plan it that way. It just popped out. It sounded right. I don't even know what that means, Grimm Gorri, but. Again, it works. You just follow the breadcrumbs. It's weird, and again, it's just something that we kind of spiraled into. It took off. People liked it. One of the more common compliments we get is like, "Why did you pick these characters?" Because a lot of horror hosts will just do a vampire, and nothing wrong with that. It's just, but it's some of the same tropey type of things. So it was just, I don't know. Who knows? And
we just wanted to try to be a little different.
We had a chocolate and peanut butter Reese cup moment, and it just worked out.
Yeah. Janet, when you appear on screen as the mummy, who I think of is Valerie Leone from Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. You ever see that movie?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a big compliment because she's a hottie. Thank you.
Or a coldie because she's a mum.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
A hot coldie.
I still follow her on Twitter, by the way. She's very active on social media.
She's still around? Wow.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
She's still around. Still looks pretty darn good, even though I think she's probably in her 80s at this point.
At least.
So that was not an influence at all, or the Boris Karloff mummy or the Christopher Lee mummy. That's not where this came from?
Well, it could have been part of it. I liked learning about ancient history and learning about ancient Egypt and the mummification stuff. I was a weird kid, So
you still are weird.
And I loved Halloween stuff. So then it's like, okay, and then the mummy movies and all the different spin-offs, and I think it was all part of it.
Sure.
Halloween, monster movies, a little bit of ancient history stuff, mythology.
It makes sense to me.
Like a monster mashup of things.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
A true monster mashup. Yes.
Aw. So tell us a little bit more about your YouTube channel and the kinds of programs that you show, and I guess the Hairy Scary Hangout.
So, as we said earlier, that we did our program or our show is originally like a direct to DVD scripted thing. We did that for what we call 2 seasons,
Yeah. It started out as just the Mummy and the Monkey, and then we had a YouTube channel, and we would just do little video clips on there.
Yeah, but we tried a show called The Mummy and the Monkey's Munchy Crunchy Video Bits, where we would show I'm a big.
We would play cartoons, like old public domain cartoons.
Yeah, and stuff I would find. Like I'm a big VHS head or tape head. We actually do a segment on our show now called Rescued Reels, where we find stuff on VHS tape, beta, reel to reel,
Super 8 film. Yeah.
And we like video archive type stuff, and we find people's home movies, and if they're old enough, we'll show some of this stuff. Nothing too new.
Some fun retro commercials that was taped off the TV.
But to go back to what we're originally talking about, so we did this Mummy the Monkey show for like 2 seasons, whatever, several couple years, and then a friend of ours named Dino Ewelt, who has a YouTube channel
over
called
at the Late Late Horror Show.
the Late Horror
Mhm.
Show.
He was the one who suggested to us that we should start live streaming on YouTube. And the live streaming thing, this was around maybe 2017, 2018, and it was still kind of new.
It wasn't that great. Yeah, it was
And it was really like not as good.
We didn't have 30G yet or anything where, it didn't have any, so it was a little choppy and hard. If you didn't have the right equipment, you probably were doing stuff back then too. So it's just like, it wasn't so good, but we still tried it because he was doing his own thing like that. And I thought we were a little skeptical at first because we didn't know anything about live streaming or anything.
Right.
But you learn as you go, and here we are. Like,
but we taught ourselves how to do it. He gave us some pointers as well, our buddy Dino. And what I thought was good from a creative standpoint was, again, not knocking anybody else doing horror hosting, because that's not, but when you create a product, you always try to do the best you can to create a point of differentiation. And as far as we know, or knew at the time, there were no other live streaming horror hosts that were actually
like in front of the camera in real time.
Right.
There's some live streaming channels where they put an already edited episode out and it streams, and then there's a chat, which is cool. But
but doing it live, so then if unscripted,
if we made a mistake with what we said, if maybe the mic was muted by accident
or not muted,
people saw and heard it all.
Oh yeah, we've had some good slips. Some people got to hear the real Mummy the Monkey behind for real, the language and everything. But your mic's hot, your mic's on, that kind of thing we get in the chat. So the Mummy, so we developed the Mummy the Monkey's Hairy Scary Hangout.
Yeah, and that gave us like a Friday night deadline where almost every Friday night we have to put the show out. We have to get the show ready. It kind of disciplined us more, because prior to that, when we were just sending the episodes to whoever would play it, we might get one out maybe every 2 or 3 months.
Really, it was like
kind of like in between whenever we could do the editing.
Yeah, there was no schedule.
It wasn't structured, or we didn't like have a deadline for it.
So and like you said, it got us more disciplined to do something like that. Again, why? For what reason? I mean, hopefully to monetize the channel eventually. And we're almost up to our 250th episode now.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in about another month, probably 250.
We were at 247. We just did last Friday. We had no clue that we would be this far into it. Nothing. Again, it's this really weird thing. Like, and people ask me in the beginning, like, "Why are you doing this? You getting paid for?" We're like, no, it's just a creative sort of outlet, I guess.
Yeah, we're just trying to build it up. We've had a few regular broadcast television gigs before where it wasn't quite what we were hoping for. So that's why we were like, well, let's build up our YouTube. Let's try to have our own creative control. Let's try to get this going.
And that is, is the sort of the godsend, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Or the cool thing about this format is that, within certain restrictions, you have the freedom to do what you want to do. And you can't get fired. You can't, someone can't just decide your show's not relevant. It doesn't matter. You do it as long as you want to, sometimes for as long as you want to. It's all, you have all the creative control.
Well, and what's cool now is we put out this content on YouTube, and now there are stations like in Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, that want to replay the Hairy Scary Hangout on their TV station.
They repurpose our episodes.
So we're like, sure, free advertising.
And we have no idea what they're doing. We have no idea what they look like, how they chop it all up. Because that's the other weird thing about what we're doing is that it's live streaming. So, I mean, so some of the stuff is very, we're talking about things like we do a giveaway.
We do prize giveaways.
So that means nothing after the episode.
Or if we're reading YouTube comments, it might not translate well to the TV, but that's okay.
But I really like this format, and it's still, it feels like, every time we do a new episode, it feels like we're doing the first one, because we're always nervous and running at the last minute to get everything ready. But now
we have it a little more structured, where we people send us pictures of like,
we have a segment called "What Do You Do?"
yes,
A lot of people
Okay.
have interesting things going around their televisions, like or collections that adorn and decorate their surroundings. And some people were sending us pictures of that, and we're like, hey, let's just create a segment around that. Hey,
yeah, like one person sent like a big, like their projector they had set up
Oh.
outside with like a bonfire, and they
yeah,
were hanging out outside watching the show.
our show. It's just like, and it's like, that's really cool. And so, people will send us images of what they do, and some people do crafts and things, weird things on their, not weird things.
And now with the rescue reels, also added
it's a new
into the
segment.
Harry Scary Hangout,
Yeah.
people like seeing the retro commercials and
Yep.
some of those like things taped off the TV from back in the day.
Yeah.
So
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
adding some of that nostalgia to something new and live streaming.
Oh, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Is Godzilla outside? What is that noise outside? Is it like possums tearing up the? I'm hearing things. It sounds like someone's tearing the side of the.
Maybe it's the cats or something.
Holy mackerel! Well, yeah, they feed. My mom and my wife feed the animals outside constantly with scraps of stuff. So there's every rodent and thing you can imagine outside at any given time.
That is totally okay.
You want to hear that? Anyway,
I think there's maybe cats in the kitchen. I don't think it's outside.
oh okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's
Sorry.
continue.
I know. I just think it's
I got to be honest. I'm not hearing anything. Are you, Tracy?
no,
I hear it
probably
just
not.
like a tiny little bit, but it's
Okay.
just it's okay. I was like, I think that might be my cats, but it's not my cats.
It's
they're
already
so
it's
sleeping.
something. There's some animals out here. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just anyway.
Oh my gosh. But your guys' like show is a lot of fun. And I watched some of the chat and everybody just has such a blast. Like
It's
just, going back and forth and you guys participate with the chat. It's pretty darn cool.
yeah,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we like this format again, and it seems like the interesting thing about this too is that, and what makes it rewarding, I guess, on top of everything else, it's exactly what I did as a kid when I would like plan everything for my Friday nights. We have people telling us that they have they're throughout the week they go getting things ready for this Friday, and it's like, wow, like even if one person is planning their whole night around our show. It's like I used to do that as a kid, plan my Friday was my favorite night of the week because of the Big Chuck and Little John show, and I would have everything ready, my snacks and comic books I wanted to read before that. Like it was, and people were doing that to our show, and
Wow.
it's really
Yeah.
flattering,
It's really
interesting.
sweet. And I think, well, with these old public domain movies, or if we get permission from the independent filmmakers, you put in the really funny sound effects
Yeah.
and people laugh and make fun of the movie, and
Which is
they
something
get really into it.
again. And this is a tribute to like the Ghoul, Ron Sweet, and even Ghoulardi actually started that. They would put sound effects in their movies and sound drops from different movies and TV shows or whatever they get the sound bites from. And I've collected thousands of them throughout the
So
years.
many burps and farts.
And things like, oh yes, that's the big thing too. We even have even our segments of our movies are usually chop our movies up into 4 like 15-minute segments. And one of our viewers, our friend Bob, it suggests that we call them farts. So we label them fart 1, fart 2, fart 3.
Yeah,
because the movie it's perfect.
yeah.
We don't show the best movies.
A lot of the movie stinks.
They're
works.
bad because we can't show. There's probably a way we haven't learned that yet. We need to figure out how to license digital rights to show certain movies, but we haven't figured that out yet.
That's something that is needing. We'll have to work on that at some point.
But that's limited too. I mean,
but we can show indie
forever.
movies sometimes. We like collaborating with independent filmmakers, and that brings some variety and something that's unique and different.
And we're so insane that if this isn't enough to work on, we got contacted a while back last year by a place YouTube channel called The Kings of Horror, KOH, and they wanted to have their own block of horror host shows. So they reached out to a couple of different horror hosts, and we signed up to do a totally different show for their channel.
Where it's scripted and edited and pieced together, and it's like using the films that they have the rights to play.
Is it over there?
Oh, I don't know at this point.
Let me go see if I can find it. But explain it to them a little bit.
But it's called The Mummy and the Monkey's Tome of Terror, where There's a
sweet.
cursed book that has a genie inside the book where Grimm woke up the genie or disturbed the book somehow. And we have this, well, he wished on the book to have better movies that we could host. But then in return for that, usually he gets cursed with something that's themed from the movie.
So I fabricated this, used a book that you could store stuff in. It's like a box, so it looks like a book.
Yeah.
But I painted it and glued a bunch of junk to it and stuff, and made it look like a scary looking book, like a Harry Pottery type of Lord of the Ringsy type of thing. But so the Tome of Terror, and Janet briefly explained it there. So we've done 2 episodes, and on that channel, they have the rights to show better movies. So our first movie was Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
The second movie was Return of the Swamp Thing.
Return of the Swamp, the sequel to the Swamp Thing movie.
We're going to do a couple more episodes for them this fall.
Heather Locklear was on our show.
Wow.
In film form, yeah.
So we've got a couple more episodes of that to shoot, edit, on top of our daily lives and jobs and the Harry Scary Hangouts. So I don't know what's wrong with this.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so busy.
Yeah,
but it was an honor to be inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame.
Unbelievable.
The ceremony last year was incredible. They have a ceremony every year at a convention called Horror Hound Weekend.
Yeah.
Usually in Cincinnati, Ohio, or Indianapolis, Indiana, depending on the venue or whatever. But
and I was like, really? But it's been like 10 years, so maybe we paid our dues. I don't know.
Almost 11 years now.
I just, but we're totally, excited to be in the same official, Hall of Fame for horror hosts as the people that inspired us. It's crazy, but
it is an honor, definitely.
I love it.
And then we did receive like honorable mention in the Rondos for a couple of years.
And another cool thing with the Horror Host Hall of Fame is we were able to induct other people. We got to induct Boris Karloff this year for his work on the Chiller TV shows, or Thriller, TV shows.
Yeah.
And the other thing, he hosted another sort of TV based thing.
There were 2 of them, but
it was
Thriller was the big one.
Before Michael Jackson, there was Boris Karloff. And we've inducted who else? We got to induct who else?
Tarantula Ghoul.
The Tarantula Ghoul.
And Ghoulita from the West Coast.
And then Ghost Host.
But
these are different hosts from different parts of the country.
Yeah.
But but we're in the same induction classes as Rod Serling.
That's pretty cool.
That's right.
Now, did you guys, so where you're from, did you have a TV host? Did you grow up with a movie host back in the day? Because every city seemed to have, maybe some didn't, some did. So I'm just out of curiosity.
Not here in Nova Scotia. Like, Canada is really limited when it comes to that kind of thing. We had Joe Flaherty, who would do like his little bits on like SCTV, but not a real horror host to speak of. So up here, I really missed out on that kind of thing. I was joking with Bruce, what was it, last week or the week before? I should become an American citizen and move down there for all your guys' cool events. But Bruce has tons of experience with horror hosts.
Yeah, when I grew up in Yonkers, New York, which is in Westchester County. It's probably about a half an hour from the Bronx, maybe 45 minutes from Manhattan. And the station in our market, Channel 11 WPIX, at one time they actually had Zachary. And that was in the early 60s. Now, that was a little before me. I was born in 65. And I really didn't start to watch the Channel 11 show, which was called Chiller Theater, until the early 70s. By then, Zachary was off of that station. And instead, they didn't have really a host. But what they did, they started the show with claymation. And this weird 6-fingered hand came out of a swamp. And then they would show that like coming out of each commercial break. So I didn't really get firsthand experience with a horror host, but it was the same station, Channel 11, the same show, Chiller Theater. It was just that Zachary was gone by then. I'll tell you, the guy that really became an influence for me was later on, late 80s, early 90s. And by then I was, quote unquote, an adult, I guess. It's an arguable point. That's another story altogether. But the guy that really became an influence for me was Joe Bob Briggs on the Movie Channel and then on TNT and the various shows that he did. And I absolutely loved his stuff and continue to be a fan of his to this day. I don't get Shudder. I had Shudder for a while, and he has a great Friday night show. But now I do watch Svengoolie on MeTV, which is very corny and very campy, but still something I find interesting, even though it's very different from what Joe Bob Briggs has done. So that's kind of been my experience with horror hosts over the years.
Oh yeah, Joe Bob's cool. Svengoolie's cool. He started out just in the Chicago area on TV and radio, and got picked up by MeTV, so now people can watch them all over.
Yeah, it's incredible, the phenomenon that he has become. Now, I'm curious to ask the two of you, with regard to the shows that you do, I know there's a lot of variety within what you do, sort of like Svengoolie on MeTV, but I'm curious about getting guests. That's something Tracy and we try to get guests like yourselves on most episodes. What about you guys? Do you guys reach out to guests? Do you do taped interviews with people? Talk a little bit about that aspect of horror hosting.
Good question. I like
that. That is a good question. Yeah. We do a lot of interviews when we attend local conventions. You know, if there's guests that are interested, we'll, do some little interview video and then edit that and put that into the show, or have an extended version on our YouTube channel later.
Yeah, we rarely have anybody into the studio in our house to do because it's late at night and well, not that late, but and
the space is limited.
It's really not built for that.
We've had a few friends that were guests before in the past.
Yeah, it's just not. Yeah, but yeah. So and another thing that we do is we've created other characters that we do skits with, and one of the characters that we came up with was Janet portrays a character named Stasha from the Old Country, which is an homage to the Big Chuck and Little John, Houlihan and Big Chuck show. They had a character named Stanley, who was the certain ethnic character. If just to speak the history of it, I mean, Chuck Shadowski is of Polish descent, and back in the 60s and 70s, they would do a lot of Polish jokes and skits on their show. They got a little bit of heat from it because we had a big community in Parma, a big Polish community there, and some people didn't like that. So Big Chuck Shadowski coined the term "certain ethnic." So they would do these skits still with this guy that would trip on all the time or do like like
goofy
stuff.
Things,
but they would coin it like the certain ethnic whatever,
because then it could just be like anybody,
right?
It's not
right.
And it was different times then where they just made fun of everybody.
So he had a signature look. He had a mustache, this like floppy hat, this old timey striped sweater that a lot of people would wear in the 60s. Older guys would wear these things and walk around the neighborhood. So that was his character. Well, we were given one like a similar sweater from a friend of ours, and you came up with a character named Stasha.
Yes.
From the Old Country.
Instead of Stasha or Stanley, like the certain ethnic character, I'm like, okay, let's make a girl version.
Yeah, she doesn't talk, but that's not by design. That's almost an homage to the Big Chuck character, who never spoke. He
never spoke.
He did a few times, but it was more in character for him not to. It was almost like you're watching a comic panel go. And I portray Stasha's father, Yashu. And people love this. We always play one Stasha skit. Stasha's.
It's kind of like when Svengoolie makes fun of Berwyn.
Yeah,
and that's their big Chicago suburb that had
that's their Parma.
Had like a big, I guess. Kind of like their Parma.
It was, and that's where the original Svengoolie got the idea from. Was from Ghoulardi.
It's kind of making fun of
Parma,
like the I guess the suburban life, suburbia.
If you do
people
that,
people with the pink flamingos in their yards and the gazing balls and
if my horror host history is correct, and Jerry Bishop portrayed the first Svengoolie, And
That's right.
again, he was again a hippie type of character, beatnik type of thing, like Ghoulardi was. And and that Jerry Bishop, I believe, worked here in Cleveland during that time, and that's where the inspiration for Svengoolie came from. And they even some of the sound effects that Chuck Shadowski culled from different parts, different places that they used on the Ghoulardi show, they actually use those on to this day on the Svengoolie show.
Svengoolie uses some of the Big Chuck sound effects.
So there's a laugh that Chuck pulled from a local DJ that they use on the Svengoolie show, and when I hear it, I'm like, I remember it blows my mind because it was so synonymous with the Big Chuck and Little John Houlihan and Big Chuck shows.
And I'm thinking he took the laugh.
Oh my God, the ow, 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 and hey, pooey. But those are from older like records. From I think the guy's name was, I can't think of it offhand, but
like comedy records.
Yeah. But a lot of it's pulled from different things. But it's just weird to hear some of the sound effects on even on the current Svengoolie shows that are from, the Houlihan and Big Chuck show and Big Chuck that I heard growing up forever. And and I didn't know about Svengoolie until like I came back to Cleveland. I think when I got MeTV. I think
maybe when you first started on MeTV, we were like, "Oh, what's this show?"
Yeah, I never heard.
And then we looked up the history and everything. We're like, "Oh, that's cool."
Eating up everything horror host. I mean, and since with the internet, that makes it so much easier to access information, and so it's just I can never stop learning about them. I love learning about the history of it.
Oh my gosh. Well, there's always so much. And something cool that I learned about you guys too, you're really into thrifting. And I think that's pretty cool. Can you talk a little bit about that? And do you have your own like eBay store for some of the cool finds that you have?
Yeah. So James and I each have our own eBay store. And then sometimes we do make thrifting vlog videos or podcast videos where we show like our thrift haul.
It's called Living the Scream, and we do it like this. We do it streaming live, and we'll do half the show Mummy the Monkey news and half the show our thrifting eBay store updates and fun finds.
So our YouTube channel just kind of covers like all the things we're interested in, and we have different playlists on the channel. So we have our Rescued Reels playlist for the found media, Living the Scream podcasts for like talking about all the behind the scenes stuff, and then Monster Hustle for like our thrifting vlogs,
which we haven't done those in
a while, and then the Mummy and the Monkey for like our live streams.
Yeah, we've created a monster. With many heads,
and which is tough because some YouTube channels are only thrifting videos or only
whatever the
horror movie stuff. And we're like, let's just cover all the things we like.
Yeah.
But that might be.
I want to go thrifting in character one day.
Oh, gosh.
I think that would be great.
You've talked about that. I don't know if I could do that.
It's a different thing.
Well, you should. I think it would be like a ton of fun. Is there anything that you can think of that you found that is absolutely incredible that you like? I can't believe I found that.
Something that we have on set here was brought to us. Well, Tor Johnson's leaving. You might like this, and this crosses the paranormal stuff too. Although we haven't had anything paranormal happen with it. A friend of ours walked into our. Janet actually had a physical store, a thrift store.
I used to have a little brick and mortar resale shop. It was kind of like a buy sell trade little thing.
But a friend of ours came in with the skull he found. It's a plaster skull. It smells like sulfur. It's really stinky. But I guess that's the gypsum or something they use in plaster. But you see that thing on the bottom? It's like a disc. It's like a can. You shake this thing, it makes like rattling noises. We don't know what's inside of this. So we were thinking
maybe there's ashes in it, like somebody's ashes.
Gosh!
But we don't know. But he brought this into us. He brought this skull into us, and he said he found it in his attic and didn't know what to do with it. And I don't know. We've asked several people. We have a friend who is the curator of the the Witch Museum.
The Buckland Museum of Witchcraft and Magic, and that's also in Cleveland, Ohio.
So we want to bring that to him and see what he might think that could be. I just don't understand why a heavy plaster skull has a can. It looks like a rubber cement can or something embedded upside down with the metal. Looks like a twist top. We didn't open it up, and I don't know if we should.
Yeah.
I
Now,
wouldn't.
for those listening just to the audio version
Cute.
of our show, the skull that you just showed,
Yeah.
what exactly was that a skull of?
A human. It's
It was a human skull.
It looks like a human skull, your typical human
It
skull.
might have been used for like
But
maybe
Masonic.
Oddfellows
Yeah.
or Masonic. It might have
That's
came
one of the
from one of
ideas.
those, but he found it in his attic. I guess
Yeah.
it came with the house.
Yeah.
And it's heavy. It's like plaster.
Yeah, but and when we show this to people, they're like, "Well, maybe
With,
that thing in the
with
bottom
a
is
can
to
on
weight
the
it."
bottom kind of stuck in there with, and when
Well-
you shake it, it kind of makes a sound like there's something in it.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
why
We
would you
thought-
weight? Why would you weight heavy plaster? You don't
Maybe
need
ashes
to.
or something. I don't know.
It's too small for ashes, though. I don't know, but I don't know what get gruesome, but who knows?
But it's
You never
strange.
know.
So it's probably one of the weirder things we've acquired.
Yes,
and then-
haunted dolls.
Oh yeah. That
Really?
So at a local flea market, there was a guy who was selling haunted dolls, and I air quotes.
Well, you knew it was haunted because it said on the sign "haunted."
He
doll.
made a sign saying that the dolls were haunted, and they were just 1950s like plastic bride dolls, something that maybe you would see at like the grocery store or Woolworths back in the day.
Yeah, and he put them in a glass case so they couldn't get away.
Yeah.
And he had a really, but I love this kind. Anyway, you bought the doll because
I bought them because
you
they
had
were
to.
only like $5 or $10. It was cheap, and I
but
liked
the
the
story was
and
great.
he was probably just BSing us.
It was great BS. It's
But it was
this
a great
is how you sell
story.
things. This is how you do it.
And
So
I sold them in my eBay
he
store.
said he and a friend were like they did contracting work, and they went up to an attic in a house they were working on. And he goes, we got upstairs, and then in the attic there was a pentagram drawn on the attic floor, and at the end of each pentagram point there was a doll, and this is one of the dolls.
And I bought 2 dolls. He said he sold the other ones.
But then magically he had 5 more the next week.
Well, he might have. I don't know. We don't go back the next week. I don't remember.
But I like that kind of stuff. I mean, it was worth the price of the story.
You know,
It was a
I
great
put
story.
it on eBay saying, you know, the person who sold it to me said it was from an attic, and I had the whole spiel, and
boom, it's sold.
And some I think it was some people on the West Coast that bought them that wanted to see if the doll was really haunted.
Oh boy.
I wasn't sure. I didn't experience anything ghostly with them, and I treated them nice just in case.
This is one of those questions
Yeah.
too that like tonight or tomorrow around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll dawn on me what I should have said.
Probably.
You know, like, duh, why didn't I bring this up? So I don't know.
Oh my
Hopefully
God.
we're
But we
filling
have
some
found
blanks in here. Good.
gold, we have found silver,
Oh.
we have found some really nice collectibles, and some things we'll keep for our collection, some stuff we sell. So we're grateful for all those cool finds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
It's the
that
thrill of the
skull
hunt.
was like one of the weird ones.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool, though. And I mean, you just never know. I mean, there could be something really quirky inside that skull.
We don't know. Yeah, who knows?
Maybe someone's teeth.
But he,
I don't know.
I don't know. But he's been on our set for a while there. So or
Yeah.
it's been on our set. I don't know what it is.
Oh my jeez.
Don't
Oh
know
my
who
goodness.
it was.
Who it was, what it was. I don't know.
Oh wow.
All right, Janet and James, I want to put each of you on the spot here, but in a good way.
Uh-oh.
Okie
I
doke.
want to talk about what each of your favorite horror films would be. Is there one film for each of you that really left kind of a lasting impact on you? Let's start with Janet.
My favorite horror films?
Yeah.
Let's see. There's so many good ones. It's hard. It's you can't just pick one. So
So pick the most interesting one that you
Yeah,
think.
give us 2 or
It doesn't
3.
get enough. Yeah,
Okay.
you have that in you.
Tourist Trap from the
Oh.
1970s.
Chuck Connors.
yeah.
Yeah, Chuck Connors is in there from The Rifleman. And what's that one lady from?
One of the later Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, I can't remember
I
her
can
name
see
right
it.
now.
Dark hair, blue
Dark
eyes.
hair. Charlie's
Tanya
Angels.
Roberts?
Tanya Roberts.
Yeah, she was on that 70s show.
Yes.
Yeah, she played the
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's in that movie, and it's one of those movies that not a lot of horror fans know about, and it's so odd. It has to do with like someone who has, I guess, telekinesis powers, and they move these mannequins around, and the mannequins
It's
come to life and kill people.
Super creepy.
It's
Yeah.
one of the creepiest and most bizarre movies that
It's
really,
strange. Yeah.
yeah. And
It's-
then like old school Universal, of course, The Mummy. I got to go with The Mummy.
Sure.
That's one of my faves. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm picky about the gory movies, but that's one that really stuck with me over the years.
Yeah, I'm still partial to the original Exorcist movie. That's one still holds. I mean, I know people watched it and say it's boring, but to me, it's the pacing, the slow burn, but it's just such a really well done movie. The atmosphere in that movie is palpable. You just, I wish I could see more movies like that.
That's
But
a
I
good one.
love the original Exorcist movie. Horror movie, a newer one, Get Out was pretty inventive.
Yeah.
It was totally what I had an idea going in what I thought it was going to be in an eye-rolling way, and it totally was not anything. I love that. It was almost like the Sixth Sense, or that moment where the penny rolls out. I'm sorry, I mean that penny rolls out. I'm thinking of Somewhere in Time. That's not. But when you realize what's going on in the Sixth Sense, it's like, oh boy, and all this time I thought you don't think of it. But yeah, I like movies like that. But horror.
One that we probably both really like, and it's probably people think it's the worst movie ever made, but I think it's wonderful because it's so cheesy.
It's amazing.
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Ed Wood classic.
Yes.
Done again, very serious in Ed Wood's serious way.
Yes.
But boy, it is the archetype of a bad movie, of a B movie.
Yes.
And not a boring B
movie. But
movie
it's B
at all.
movie perfection because it's so bad but so entertaining.
From the flying saucers on the strings to the opening of this movie, where the cockpit of that plane is
there's a shower curtain behind
thing.
them. Like it's supposed to be in a plane, and the curtain behind them, you could tell it's like a shower curtain.
You're not supposed to even acknowledge that.
No, you're supposed to believe they're in a plane.
And there's the steering things. I don't know what those are. I think a coat hangers or something. It's just so good. I think it's just a square, like a triangle that they cut out of cardboard.
It could have been cardboard. I don't know.
But it's beautifully and look, don't just believe it that this is what's going on.
I will. Yeah, I'll believe it.
Oh, I love it.
But
those are some great choices. They really are. Hey, let's talk about your plans for the Halloween season. And I think of really the whole month of October leading up to the actual day on October 31st. What are you guys planning for your show throughout the month of October?
We don't plan. No, we have no idea. Actually, we don't. Well, do we?
We're working on for episode 250 something big, which should debut around Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, we should really try to figure out how that's going to work.
Yeah, we have some film shorts and some found things that it's like video awesomeness that we're trying to piece together, where episode 250 might be more like a fun clip show of just like found footage and
I mean, to sort of like not circle around, but like to that, one of the things you didn't mention really quick too, and it was kind of fun about doing this like video archaeology or this like finding old stuff, is Janet was going through. She bought a scanner that can scan an 8mm film, and it does it one frame at a time. It's like tick tick.
It saves it on a little memory card
digitally. Yeah. Okay. But she was going through one film and she's watching it back, and she's like, "Oh, who's this pretty lady?" And I walk over. I'm like, "That's Jane Mansfield." She has footage of an appearance Jane Mansfield did. We had to do some research. There's no footage of this, pictures or video, or there is now, but it was
and that's
documented
on our YouTube channel right now.
Yeah, you can see that it was documented. She was doing. She did like the opening for a Giant Tiger
store, which was kind of like a Walmart back then.
Yeah, it was a department,
like a grocery store, department store thing,
like a Woolworths or something. Yeah. But it was in Mansfield, Ohio, so they had Jane Mansfield appear there.
Right.
Yeah, she would go around making appearances like in the 60s up until her death.
Yeah, someone had their 8mm camera rolling film, and she's sitting there with her little dog and her fuzzy sweater thing on.
Her Angora sweater, signing autographs.
But yes,
it's really cute.
You really never know what you're going to find on some of this. But anyway, Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween. We hope to go to some haunted houses, and we have a convention coming up literally early October.
This week.
I'm not sure when this will air. Cinema Wasteland, and we usually do that twice a year. There's information on cinemawasteland.com, but it's a fun 3-day film festival and horror film and B-movie convention.
Yeah, and this is the haunt season. The haunter season is like our busiest time of year. But there's Akron Comic Con is like a week after
Yeah, I think it's a week or
October.
two after Halloween, so we're preparing for that
So it even
convention
bleeds
too.
into that part of the year. But
Because
yeah,
a lot of the horror fans also love comic books and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's kind of like the worlds collide sometimes.
yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's not super busy, but busy enough
Well, and
for
we're
us.
preparing for more episodes, 2 more episodes of the Tome of Terror on the Kings of Horror YouTube channel. So we have a lot of video stuff we're preparing for, and then like a couple of appearances.
Yep.
Oh, that's so fun. Now, do you post those appearances, like the upcoming appearances for the conventions and that on your website?
Yeah, well, on our social media, we
Uh-huh.
have a website also, themummyandthemonkey.com, that has all of our
Mhm.
social media links like
Mhm.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Right. Oh,
So yeah,
fun.
we'll post updates on there, like
Yeah, and
when
on our
the next
show,
show will be, and
we do plugs on our weekly show too. Just
Mhm.
to let people people watching know where we'll be and what we're up to.
Oh,
So,
nice.
mhm.
And I have just one more question. What
Sure.
what films are you looking forward to, horror related, that are coming out within the next 6 months to a year? Is there anything that you're like, man, I can't wait to see that?
No.
No. Honestly,
Interestingly
well-
enough, we don't go to the movies a lot.
we end up watching a lot of old movies,
Yeah.
and we don't always see the new movies right away.
We have
Right.
stacks and stacks of
So
stuff.
many, like we'll go to the library and get movies.
On top
we'll
of
go and buy movies at the flea market and thrift shops. And
but anything new, the only thing I'm aware of coming out, or that is the Terrifier, the third one of that.
Oh, right. Okay.
But they haven't given it a chance yet. We saw part of the first one. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah.
But I really like gore stuff, but it's just gore to be gore.
I guess I'm picky
There's a lot
about
of
the
that.
gore movies.
There's a
It
lot of
has
that.
to have like a story or something like that I find interesting about it. And
it might.
I'm not
but we
really
just
into
haven't
the
watched
clown
them.
stuff. I know a lot of people are. It's just never
Then
really.
why'd you marry one?
Well,
Oh.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I liked.
Oh,
Oh,
that's a
that
great
was
movie.
a blast. That was a
Yeah.
blast.
But
Yeah.
that one's really cheesy.
Yeah.
I think I like the cheesy
Are-
stuff a little more than like the real serious gore.
Maybe can you rifle off a few titles that maybe you were aware, we're just not thinking
Yeah.
quick enough at this.
There's the brand new Nosferatu coming out on Christmas
Oh,
Day.
Okay, that we'll
we'd
have
like
to go see.
Yeah, with the
I
guy
didn't
that
know
played.
that was coming out that
What's
soon.
this fellow's name that played Freddie Mercury? Or no, it's the same different guy. The guy that played. Yeah,
I don't.
Oh,
is that the
I
same
don't
dude?
remember.
The guy that played.
Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah, the guy that played it.
Yeah.
He played Pennywise.
Oh yeah,
He's in
yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah. Pennywise is cool. I like him,
Yeah.
but I don't
And
like all
then-
the clowns.
Oh gosh, no. I find them kind of creepy. And then there's the new Stephen King Salem's Lot that comes out on October the 3rd. And that's
Yeah.
like a streaming show. So it's a couple of really good ones. Bruce, can you think of any other?
Who's
exciting
playing the Nosferatu? It's like 2 Nosferatu things coming out, because that Salem's Lot vampire is very Nosferatu like.
Yeah, Bill Skarsgård is Nosferatu.
That's
And
right.
I don't know about Salem's Lot. I can't remember the cast.
Maybe it'll be Chris Walken.
I wish.
Stay still. I want to suck your
a
blood.
newer horror film that we saw, I think it was on Shudder, Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, with David
Oh.
Das
that
Malchin.
movie's really
We love that.
awesome.
We
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, and David Das Malchin is such a
He's
great
a great
guy
actor and really
and a
talented.
great actor. He's got a comic book out called Count Crowley, which is about a horror host. A monster hunter type of horror host, and
Mhm.
he actually has his own character. David has his own horror host character. He does stuff
Oh
with
yeah, Doctor. What? It was like a vampire.
Dr. Fear.
Dr. Fearless.
Fearless, yeah.
Yeah, he's like a Nosferatu kind of guy with the
2 teeth in
yeah.
the front, type of thing.
Oh my
really
God.
funny. But and we've actually had the pleasure to be on a panel of horror hosts with him several years ago.
Wow.
And Rich Cause.
And Rich
Sven
Coase
Woolley, yeah.
was there. It was out of character, but he was there. It was like
Wow.
an honor,
Yeah, with like a
Nice.
handful of other hosts.
Marlena Midnight.
It was pretty cool.
Dr. Sarcophagi. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a really fun event.
Oh wow.
But yeah, what was the question?
New movies we were
Oh,
looking
yeah, new
forward to
movies.
watching.
Yeah, and who's playing who and whatnot.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
I couldn't remember like what was coming out.
Yeah. but yeah, but we're unfortunately we are just we're so busy. We just don't know what's going on. I sometimes
we'll see them all
I hate that,
eventually. We'll see the new movies eventually.
Yeah,
Oh,
because everyone's
wow.
and who goes to see? I mean, everyone's TV is like as big as their wall now. It's like going to the movie.
I like going out to see a movie, but I don't always like the other people that go to see a movie
their cell phones
because they're on their phone.
They're always
or they're making noise, and it's like distracting from you wanting to watch the movie.
No, I agree. I love streaming, like from my home.
Yeah.
The movie theater, like it's great for certain things, but it's just easier to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, guys, this has just been so much fun. I can't even tell you. This is a
we had a good
blast.
time too.
It's been fun chatting with you.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I apologize if I rattled on a lot, but I don't know. There's like so much to say.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, we could go on for days just talking.
Well, we definitely appreciate it. And so thank you so much for taking time to chat with us tonight.
It was our pleasure. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And maybe we'll do it again sometime. Who knows?
And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, we thank you both. As Tracy said, this has really been a blast. Very enjoyable. Janet J, also Janet Decay, The Mummy, James Harmon is Grimm Gorri, and The Monkey. We want to thank both of you for joining us. You've done incredibly well, great success, and we congratulate you on that, but also hope that it continues for quite a long time. Thanks to both of you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. It was
Thanks,
a pleasure.
guys. Good night, good fright.
Our thanks to Janet and James, and of course to my co-host and producer, Tracy Asteria. We thank all of our listeners as well for joining us in this Museum of the Macabre. And we hope we'll see you again next time, right here in the Ghostly Gallery.